Hey, so it's Miss Cole, and today I'm going to tell you about another book that, honestly, this has been on the list since the beginning. I've been kind of working my way up to it because this is probably the book that has changed my life more than any other. It is the New York Times bestseller, Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman. I think I'm saying his name right. He probably won't watch it, so it won't really matter. Kahneman's point is basically that there are two different types of thinking. He calls them system one and system two. And that's where the book title comes from. One thinking is fast thinking, and the other thinking is slow thinking. Fast thinking is instinctive and it's based on it's the idea of following your gut, and it's based on our intuitive decisions and ideas based on our experiences, as well as possibly, although this isn't well supported, um just human experience and human nature. So all of that bundled up together becomes our instinctive, our gut response. The whole idea of listening to your gut. Well, Kahneman's point is that your gut doesn't always lead you right, which we know. And so he talks about slow thinking as logical thinking, as reasoning through your decisions. And what we've seen through a fair amount of research is that we think, we're thinkers, but it doesn't seem to work out that way, like not in practice. What happens is we make our decisions based on intuition, and then we use our critical thinking, our logical reasoning processes to justify the decision that we've already made. And this happens even when we don't realize it. Kahneman's point isn't necessarily that we can change that, but that by being aware of it, we can kind of compensate for it. This has been really influential on me as a teacher in thinking about how I deal with, the people that I work with, mostly students, but also parents, colleagues, and administration. Mostly with students, though. Teachers often frame student behaviors in terms of inherent and aspects of their identity. One that I've really tried to get away from is saying that so and so is lazy, or so and so is, labeling them as lazy or being a procrastinator or being a good student. Ooh, I don't like that one. Or a bad student, which hopefully I've never labeled a student that way. But hopefully I also haven't labeled a student as a good student. I don't want students or people really to think about themselves as this is who I am. Because one of the other things that Kahneman gets into is that who we are changes. We are the product of what we've been through is most of who we are by the time we're adolescents, let alone adults. He talks about, and this was drastically influential in a small part of my life, but still an important one. He talks about the two selves, the experiencing self and the remembering self. Now, the experiencing self is the one that we think of as us, but ultimately, what we're left with is the remembering self. So he talks about, a thought experiment. If would you rather go on a vacation, a wonderful vacation, and then have no memory of it afterward, or not actually go on the vacation, but somehow have like implanted into your brain the memories of that vacation? And research indicates that you'd be happier if you remember the vacation that you didn't actually go on than if you went on a vacation and didn't remember it. Likewise, it goes the other way with pain. If you go through a painful experience, but you don't remember it, does that matter? And so, having read that influenced my choices in dentistry. I had a severe phobia of just having foreign objects crawling around inside my mouth. Didn't like that. Not so much. No, that's still not big on that idea. When we did 1984, I'm going down rabbit trails here. but you can just turn off the video if you don't like it. So when we did 1984, we talked about what would be in our room 101 and what our greatest fear was. And mine was that my parents would attend my funeral. That's the big one. And the room really got quiet for that one because, most people talked about like heights and snakes. I was like, however, on a less existential note, having my mouth sewn shut or glued shut with bugs inside, beetles inside, trying to claw or chew their way out. Yeah, that's. So that's what dentistry feels like to me. It's like there's things in my mouth and they're trying to claw through like my cheeks or up into my brain. They're trying to get out of my mouth through my head and it just feels so bad. It's awful. Whew. So previously I had, gotten my teeth taken care of just by forcing myself through it. Like, digging fingernails into the palms, so hard that they left marks and broke the skin. Usually without bleeding, but sometimes there'd be little bits. And, clinging onto the chairs, your knuckles turn white and like you can see your veins across the metatarsals. Is that the metatarsals? Whatever that is there. And like not being able to breathe effectively. Like it's tight and you're breathing and it's not like you feel constrained because you're choosing to go through it, but it sucks. It really sucks. I found a dentist in Chattanooga who did sedation dentistry. Not that you were completely out for it, but you wouldn't remember it. To the extent that about a week or so after I'd had my first cleaning there, just a cleaning, mind you, not like any major work, we were driving through downtown. I was like, we need to go and have lunch at Tupelo Honey. We said we were going to do that. And my husband looked at me. He's like, are you messing with me? I'm like, no, we said we were going to do that. And like, it's the weekend, so we could. He's like, we went there last week. I was like, what are you talking about? No, we didn't. It's like, yeah, you got the, grilled cheese sandwich with Gouda and sliced pear. I was like, that was what I was going to get. He's like, we went after you went to the dentist. I was like, I have no memory of this. Nothing. It's not there. It's like it didn't even happen. And that dentist has since retired. This is a few years ago now, and he retired shortly after I started going there. But I'd been through going there and taking the oral sedative enough that I was able to, like, it took care of it. I didn't worry about it as much. It took some of that pressure off. I was able to go in and not have that initial fear of this is going to be a terrible experience because you know what? I don't care if it's a terrible experience. I'm not going to remember it. So who cares? And I'd already told the dentist, like, it's not a big deal. This is not about you. I realize this is irrational and unreasonable. I'm just trying to get through it because I want my teeth to be healthy because it's an important part of overall physical health. And that was just a huge game changer for me. And I can go to the dentist now and I don't get sedated anymore. And it's still an unpleasant experience, but it's not as bad as it had been because my prior experience has shifted now. And that has shifted some of my apparently subconscious perceptions of what's going on. That part of the book is also, the whole thing's really good. It's a big stinking book, like almost 500 pages in paperback. But the idea that what we remember is ultimately what matters, that was definitely, for a teacher, as a teacher, that was definitely significant for me as well. I want to think about not just what we're actually doing in class, but think about what students' perception of it is. Now, their perception is not just based on what happens and what I do and what they do. It's also based on their prior experience and their expectations. And, maybe they've had a bad day or maybe they had a really good day. All of that factors in. But I need to be aware of that. I can't know everything that's going on with them, but I need to be aware that what I do is not the only part of what's going on in class that's going to affect how they remember it and how it affects them throughout, the rest of their school year and the rest of their lives. Keeping the importance of perception and memory and how they are influenced not by just what's going on, not only by what we're experiencing, but by the rest of the factors in our lives. That's been really important for me as a teacher. The points that Kahneman makes in this that were the most important were the value that he gives to the instinctive, intuitive process. I thought that was important. We need to understand that despite how much we priority we place on logic and reasoning, that at our core, we are also feeling creatures, and that matters. And if we ignore that, it makes us less aware of ourselves and less able to communicate effectively with others. When we consider the emotional aspect of our conversation, our attempts at persuasion, any of that, it makes us more effective at having honest, meaningful, effective conversations. The fact that there are these two different processes, but not that one is necessarily better than the other. Understanding how to reach people emotionally when they react emotionally to something that challenges them allows us to get past that defensive reaction. And then the second point that was really important for me was the significance of the perceiving and not just experiencing self, but the remembering self. I really liked this book, you guys. Kahneman's Thinking Fast and Slow. One of the other things I liked about it is it's nice for picking up, setting down, and coming back to it. So, you don't have to set aside a whole weekend to sit down and just cram through the book and just focus on it. You can it lends itself well to reading a little bit and setting it aside for a while to think it over and let that sort of percolate through to how it affects your life. And then coming back to it later. And just with the way my life works, that's really convenient because I ain't got time for 500 pages just nonstop. That is not going to fly. If you've read this book, or if you're familiar with some of Kahneman's other work or other people's work, another one that How We Decide, can't remember the guy's name, is also significant for this one, but this one's better. So if you've read this book, let me know what you think of it in the comments, or if you have others that would be, good for me to read. Love to know about it. Don't forget, check the links. I have a Patreon now. Yay. Would love to have you as a patron. Mostly comments, though. And add me on Goodreads, and we can talk about books there, too. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. Bye.